Hey friends, it's Rena Olsen. Welcome to the Relevate Podcast. Today on this episode, we have Dave Burgess. Dave is the president of the nonprofit organization UboraTZ. UboraTZ serves orphans, widows, and families living in the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. So Dave's personal professional journey is both hope-filled and purely inspirational, as he felt the call of God on his heart to move from that of being an engineer to serving this nonprofit organization. Dave Burgess, welcome to the Relevate Podcast.
Thank you. Hey, Rena.
Awesome. Well, hey, super excited to just have a conversation with you. Your connection with UboraTZ, your love for Tanzania, and then also to talk about Climb Kili, which is your first ever fundraising event, which is amazing. I think it's very interesting. You have an engineering background, and now you're a nonprofit director. So just tell us a little bit about all of that. That'd be great.
Quick background. I grew up, I was this only child. My father had an accident when I was 3 months old. And he ended up being a quadriplegic. And so I ended up growing up being his hands. And my dad was very technical. He was a pilot. He did communications work when he was in the Air Force. And so I think through that, being his hands, I learned to be very hands-on and learn a lot more than I would have earlier in life.
Wow. So how old were you when that accident happened?
I was 3 months old. And I guess the segue into, how I became an engineer is we had a family friend who was also a paraplegic from Georgia. And he knew I was good in math and science. And he had always wanted to go to Georgia Tech, but couldn't due to his injury. And I just remember him telling me as I got towards my senior year, he said, "Hey, Dave, you should go to Georgia Tech." And so ended up coming up to Atlanta to visit it from Florida. I remember the guidance counselor saying, we have a lot of valedictorians who fail out. I was not the valedictorian, so it somehow registered as a challenge. And somehow it was one of those decisions I can't believe I made at the time, because I usually did not make very good decisions at 18. But ended up at Georgia Tech, and here I am.
Wow. So you were able to get through all the aggressive classwork. I mean, I always hear about how hard Georgia Tech is.
Yeah, it was. I was not one of those students who was able to hear the material and then do well. I had to do it by brute force and learn to. It took me probably about the first year to realize that I had to study a lot.
Sometimes that's what it takes, isn't it? So you got through tech, which was a major accomplishment, and you became an engineer.
Right. Spent first half of my career prior to Ubora in the manufacturing world. Worked at Yamaha, where we made golf cars and jet skis.
Oh, fun.
Here in the metro Atlanta area. And then switched, went and got my MBA, and ended up in a short stint in venture capital at Georgia Tech's incubator, and then started a company with folks that I met through that in the energy sector. So we had a couple of patents, and tried to start a company. We call it a good base hit. It wasn't a home run. The thing is, we just are not sure if we were in the minor leagues or in the national league. But we did. We started the company and ended up getting acquired, and spent 3 years in Switzerland as a result of that.
That's awesome. So let's talk about your connection with Ubora and kind of the history. How did that come to be?
When we came back from Switzerland, my wife and I were looking for a church, and we ended up finding Perimeter. Really loved the church. We loved the school, and our kids started attending Perimeter School. And through that, we learned about what was then Project Child, which was a child sponsorship program in Tanzania. And we decided to sponsor 3 children, one for each of ours, matched age.
Very cool.
And began doing the letters and the phone calls. And it was pretty much, that was the extent of our involvement. Until one year, Pastor Warelli and Godfrey, the headmaster of the school in Tanzania, visited Perimeter. And we ended up getting to talk with them and just realized at that moment that the whole experience could be much richer than we had let it be for, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And that these children were really real. And so I think it was pretty much at that moment we decided that we were going to go on a mission trip over there. And that's when we really got bit by the Tanzania bug.
Yeah. Wow. So for those that don't know, tell us who Pastor Warelli is.
Yeah. So Pastor Warelli is literally the founder of this whole mission. He met a member from Perimeter Church, Tim Neat, who runs the Project Child program, met back in 2002 at a conference in Africa. And it was really Pastor's prayer with Tim out at the land where our school now sits that started this whole thing.
Wow. It's really quite amazing that connection happened.
Right. People call it a chance meeting in Africa, but we all know that God set that up, and He's known exactly what's going to happen in all of this, even though we're all amazed at what's happened since that prayer. On my recent trip to Tanzania in November 2020, we stood on the hill. The hill still sits there on the land, hasn't been built upon yet. And we stood right there where that prayer was prayed, and it was just a really neat experience to see what has happened over these 18 years, and then some of the plans that are in place now.
Unfolding for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us, Dave, a little bit about what has happened over those 18 years. I know it's a very long and robust story, but just give us a high-level overview about the involvement. And I think the thing that is so cool about Ubora is it's a true partnership between the two communities.
Wow, how to begin? I think the whole effort started with folks wanting to address widows. At the time, AIDS was ravaging the region, and so there were a lot of widows.
Right, and this was in early 2000s, right?
2002 time frame, and a lot of widows, a lot of severe poverty, and so the immediate goal was to just address that from a mercy standpoint and provide some relief.
Right.
And the story goes that once you start working with the widows, you don't have to look far until you see their children without fathers. So Pastor Warelli always wanted to start a school, and so through.
And he had some specific thoughts on the school, right? That the kids would learn to speak English.
Right.
English medium school.
Right. It's a huge step up in Tanzania because English is the language of business. So Pastor's thought was that he had a simple goal. He wanted them to be able to read and write in English.
Sure.
And just to see, we've come so much further than that even. Yeah. So it started there. We ended up, the mission, I say we, but the mission ended up building a lot of homes for widows over the years. Then the school was built, and we now have 300 children at the school. The neat story is that out of this village of hundreds of children, very few, if any, qualified to go to secondary school. So that means that they take a test in grade 7, and if they don't do well, their education is done for their life. Oh, wow. And so when the mission first started, very few were able to go on to secondary school, middle school, really. And now nearly every one of our graduates from 7th grade qualify to go to secondary school.
That's amazing.
I think also the thing with Ubora is that we look for what God is doing, and then He keeps showing us other things, and so you can't stop. And so we keep continuing to partner with our organization there, Shefo. So, for example, as these kids go on to secondary school, well, a lot of them need help financially to do that.
Right.
So we took that step. And then they graduate and go into college, and so we have a grant program and a scholarship program. So it's a really long-term, in-depth relationship.
Right. And then there's, helping build the economy so that those graduates have jobs. So, and we're in it. Ubora's in it every step of the way. But I think it's really cool that it's Pastor Wariali's vision that it continues to drive everything.
He is an amazing pastor and leader and Christian. And so his vision, though he came from a small farming background, his vision is quite large, and it's neat to see God fulfilling that.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me about the importance of that long-term commitment to a very specific area in Tanzania.
Right. We a lot of organizations will try to scale and do things across a broad region, and that's great. Mm-hmm. We've just been led to go very deep with the relationships that we build. Mm-hmm. And kind of our thought is that in doing that, those deep relationships will branch out across the country and populate the country with Christian leaders. So that's kind of been our thought the whole way through, is to go very deep. And then by way of that, go broad in the nation.
Yeah. In what was a community of the poorest of the poor, right?
Right.
Reaching in there, loving on them, giving them the tools they need to succeed long-term in life. I think it's just such a powerful mission. Yeah, so tell me about some of the partners of Ubora, the nonprofit partners.
We work, in America, we work with a handful of partners, some of which are MAP, which provides medicine that is, perhaps a little out of date for use here, but is fine. They've done the work to test that, and it's very helpful medicine. We work with MedShare, who provides medical equipment, kind of in the same way as hospitals get the latest and greatest. They'll take that older equipment and refurbish it for use wherever it needs to be used in the world. In Tanzania, we partner with SHEFO, Shelter of Hope and Excellence Foundation. They are our feet on the ground.
Exactly.
They know the culture, and it's an incredible partnership with them to administer all of the programs that we do in the region.
Right. And then there's Books for Africa.
Right.
And the fact that Ubora's built the first village library in the whole country. And there's a second one coming on board.
Right. The library effort is a neat story. The first one, Ubora talked with Shefo and suggested, hey, let's build a library in the tiny village of Karansi. Honestly, folks didn't really know what a library was. And so they said, sure. And ended up bringing over 25,000 books, which have allowed Shefo and Ubora to start a reading program for little children. Adults go in there for agricultural information. We see college students in there just getting extra information for their coursework. The people are really hungry to learn. And so then we had the opportunity to build another library in a nearby village. And the people from that village had been to the first library. And so when we asked them if they wanted a library, they said, oh, yes, please, let's build a library.
Yeah, that's very cool. And for people who are not familiar with that area, even textbooks in the government-run public schools are seriously precious commodities. They just don't have the numbers of textbooks for the kids. Is that not correct?
Absolutely. We hear stories of public schools with one textbook for an entire class of 60 kids. Oh my gosh. So the children don't ever really even get to look at the book. They're just hearing the information from the teacher. As part of that first library effort, we had a number of extra textbooks. And the story goes that one of the headmasters came down and asked for a few textbooks, was asking for 2 or 3 textbooks. And we said, well, how many kids do you have in your class? And he said, 60. And we said, well, why don't we give you 30 textbooks? And he almost fell over. That story comes full circle when we were back there over 2 years after that, visiting that secondary school. The headmaster recognized one of us on the team, came running out of his office and was explaining and thanking profusely how much of an impact those textbooks had. And so for us, it's hard to imagine, but the textbooks and books in general are a gateway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Books for Africa is actually here in Metro Atlanta, and they've been a fantastic partner of Ubora's as well.
Can't say enough about Books for Africa. It's amazing what they do.
Yeah. So let's talk about volunteer opportunities or ways people can get involved with Ubora.
Right. So, bouncing right off of the whole library effort, in that second library, we are going to need a lot of help going down to Books for Africa to help sort and find the right books to send to the area.
Mission trips.
We hope. It's
I know before COVID, that was a regular thing where we had mission trips happening around the calendar year. So we're still a little bit on pause for that because of COVID, but we hope that sometime this year they will resume and really need volunteers in all kinds of areas for that.
Absolutely.
Right?
We probably have 300 people that go a year normally. And as soon as COVID allows, we'll be starting those back up. And we'll certainly need some help there.
Yeah. And what kind of expertise or skill sets are you looking at for volunteers for mission trips?
We really need people with heartbeat. And I joked, no, the heart for helping and serving is certainly top. But really, I can't think of a profession or a background or an area of expertise that couldn't be used in a big way over there. Medical. We have a lot of need for medical coming up. We've got a number of initiatives to do some training for healthcare workers. We're going to be putting on health screening clinics, which just takes a lot of manpower and expertise in the medical arena. If you're a business person, we've got a number of different things where we're going to be helping businesses, both small, little microfinance type opportunities, all the way up to large scale operations that we're looking at. So if you have a business background,
mentoring recent graduates,
there's anybody with a heart there can do that. We have a lot of graduates who just benefit so much from talking with people with a different perspective. And that goes for all of our sponsors for the children. That mentorship and relationship is amazingly important, even more so than the actual funding and donations.
Right. Yeah. So lots of opportunities to get involved. And Project Child, if you have a heart to sponsor a child, we do have some children available for sponsorship.
I think we've got 12 here on the 11th of January. We've got 12 children left or so. And as I said, the funding is great. All of that sponsorship money does go to help the children. It gives them their place in school, gives them a uniform, food, some medical screenings throughout the year. But just as important is the relationship you build with that child.
Exactly.
And we've had stories of kids. It means a lot to them to have a sponsor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Ubora's website, UboraTZ.org, is really the place to go to see kids available for sponsorship and to learn more about the mission.
Absolutely.
So one last thing, very cool. Talk to me about Climb Kili.
First annual fundraising event for Ubora. It's going to be a virtual climb of Mount Kilimanjaro, which, the region that we serve literally is in the shadow of the mountain. I think it's 25 miles as the crow flies. So on good days when you're there, you can see Kilimanjaro.
And is it just towering? I mean, I haven't been there yet. I mean, I just can't imagine what.
It's pretty prominent on the horizon. It's often hidden by clouds. It's so high. But Climbkilly, the idea is that you can get out and you can get out and hike, walk, or run locally, and then go to the climbkilly.org website and log those miles, and we will track your progress as you climb the mountain virtually. And we'll have a lot of fun with that. There's going to be some team bantering and competition to get there first, and then along the way, we will be feeding information about the mountain. It's got 5 climate zones, and so we're going to make the experience as real as we can as you log those miles. We'll also be feeding some information about the challenges that the folks in the region face every day.
Sure. Yeah. So all the money from registration fees, T-shirt sales, fundraising efforts, all of that is going to that community at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Right.
Siha district.
It's 100% goes to keeping Ubora operating in the region.
Yeah, that's very cool. And while Ubora, really our base is here in Metro Atlanta, really anybody from anywhere in the world can participate in Climb Kili. You're walking in your neighborhood or you're exploring local trails. And we love the fact that it's in February. In much of the U.S., you're just kind of, not much going on February. But for most climates, you can put on a jacket and get outside or go to the mall and walk. And it's all going to be in support of a very good cause.
Yeah. And I think for me, some of my best conversations in my life and prayers and thoughts have happened when I'm walking.
Exactly.
And so we hope that by feeding the information about the mountain, the information about the mission, that folks will be pondering those as they do their walks and hikes and runs throughout the month.
Yeah. Well, and I think nature has a way of just kind of giving us a reset, and you can just clear your mind and really kind of focus on, and the information the climbers will receive about the Siha district and Ubora, I think it's just going to be taking in a whole lot of good info. And then I hear you have a big announcement.
We do. So I'm an outdoor person, so this excites me. What we're going to do, we've got a crew who will be going to Tanzania in 2022 for an actual climb of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Woohoo! That's exciting.
Bucket list type event. We've got a pretty good sized crew going, and we are really excited to announce that the individual who raises the most on this year's virtual climb will get a free spot on that crew to the roof of Africa in 2022.
Is an amazing announcement.
Yeah.
Wow. And there's still room to join, right? There's
plenty of room. We can expand and do a couple of different crews if we need to, if it grows too large. Right. And then I can also foresee maybe looking at 2 different trips if it grows really large, especially if a lot of people in school age, teenagers, want to do it.
That's awesome.
One in June as well.
And then the virtual climb, that is going to be a yearly fundraising event for Ubora.
Yeah. We see this as happening every year. It just makes so much sense with Kilimanjaro being right there.
Yeah.
When we go back every year, I'm sure we'll climb. We'll go check out Kili, but we'll also go by the village as well with those who end up going.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, Dave, thank you so much for the work you're doing for Ubora and that community in the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro. For me, it's such a privilege to help tell the story and to be on the marketing team. And I'm excited about Climb Kili and possibly climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in 2022.
Oh, I thought you were on the list. You're going, Rita. No, thank you for all you do for Ubora and your amazing talent.
It's a blessing. Okay, guys. So if you want more information, the website, how do people find out more about Climb Kili?
You can go to climbkilly.org.
And then the Ubora website is?
UboraTZ.org.
And what does Ubora mean?
Ubora means excellence in Swahili.
Right.
And so it's a kind of a guiding principle for our school, over there and everything we try to do in the organization.
I love it. Okay, people, join us for Climb Kili, and thanks for tuning in. So if you feel you have a restlessness of spirit and that maybe you're not fully utilizing the gifts that God gave you to do more, be more, reach higher, I would encourage you to use Dave's story as inspiration. But I believe we're all called to do something. So really give that some reflection. That restlessness of spirit, that's God working on your heart that you need to do something. So I encourage you to reflect, to be prayerful, to put pen to paper, to really explore what God, He may be shifting you out of your comfort zone. Let Dave's story inspire you to begin exploring, how else can I serve others and I promise it will be a magnificent journey for you as well. Thank you, friends. If you're enjoying these episodes of hope and inspiration, please leave a review on the Relevate Podcast. Share these episodes with your friends, and I just appreciate you being a listener so much. And I have some really great interviews in the can, as we say. So keep listening, keep smiling, and I just am thankful to be your host. This is Rena Olsen, and this is Relevate.
Hey, this is Leslie Sands with Ubora. Welcome to our February event, Climb Kili. We hope you're super excited, like we are, about virtually climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I just wanted to share with everybody what it's like when you first land in Africa. No matter how many times I've been there, which is over 14, 15 times now, every time I step off the airplane, I take that first breath of Africa and I feel like I'm home. The smell of the airplane diesel fuel, the campfires off in the distance, the sounds of the people, the language, Swahili being spoken all around me, the excitement of the other travelers, it never gets old. And I absolutely cannot wait for you to experience the same thing one day. Oh.